she took an eyebrow pencil, right, and took her breast out, and on the nipple made like whiskers, right, and like a mouse. I didn't. I was caught unaware about it too. But anyway, your dad came in with the finishes or something, and she's, Ronnie, let me show you my mouse. Right? Well, what do you mean? You got a mouse here in the dressing room? Right? Boom! Right? Your dad had turned about 6 shades of red. Right?
I bet he did. Yeah, he was like 68. He would have been 17,
Yeah.
16,
Is that
17
all?
years old. Yeah.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
he started refereeing when he was 14. And he did that because Jimmy Dykes had to wrestle. He was doing refereeing for Nick Gulas. So somebody didn't show up or was sick, so he moved into the match, and Dad refereed. 14 years
Right.
old. Yeah, so he
Wow.
was just started.
Wow.
So when as your commentary, always when we were growing up, the credibility of the commentator was paramount.
Yes.
And is there anything that it was ever done that you said, okay, no, I just can't do it. It would ruin my credibility. Does anything ever came
There's
up?
a lot of being done now. I would say.
Not then though. You didn't have to say, okay, no, that would ruin my
I don't
credibility.
remember anything, but that's the thing too. I've said about current, right?
Right.
I said we're all hookers, just a matter of establishing price.
That's
right.
That's
You
right.
come to me. You come to me with JR money. I can lie like a mother. Boy, I can tell you that's the greatest show I've ever seen in my life. Well, but that's the thing too, Rodney. When I critique a match, I do a weekly podcast myself, and I make the point all the time to say, look, this is not personal. I don't know that guy. But I'm not buying the gimmick or the character, but I realize he's doing what he's paid to do. He's not doing it because he loves it or thinks it's the greatest thing in the world. He's doing it because he works for somebody that thinks it is. So, it's a business. And I say, offer me $750,000 a year in stock options. What do you need?
Sure.
Rodney West is 6 feet 7 inches tall, the most handsome child I've ever seen.
Fantastic wrestler.
Yeah, exactly.
Never has there been a better one until the next guy comes by and he's about to say the exact same thing. They'll give you $800,000 for that one. So if when you're sitting,
just to sit for nothing and put some of this stuff over, there is no friggin' way.
Be hard, very, very hard. And for me, Dad, when I was growing up, Dad could say, if you say something to you and you don't like it, you can see it automatically on your face. I never could hide the way I felt about something. And if I don't believe it, I can't tell.
Mike Mooneyham put out his weekly column is about Flair saying what's missing in the business today, believability. And I said with spades, for Christ's sake.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Now you're sitting there listening. You're doing your commentary. I want you to tell me about one that you're sitting there. You know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen in this match coming up, and when you see it, it's beyond anything you could ever believe. And here you are, comment. What would that be?
I'm going to show you.
That you've commented.
When I started doing this, right? As I progressed, in Canada, it was just basically dummy me trying to get a feel for what he was trying to do, right? Mm-hmm. But I think, okay, I'm a wrestler or an ex-wrestler, whatever. So unlike my dear friend Jerry Lawler, I'm not going to wet myself over a hammerlock or a set of boobs, right? I'm not going to have 6 orgasms and 4 heart attacks over a friggin' hammerlock. No more than Troy Aikman is going to lose his mind over a little flare-out pass for a 5-yard gain, right?
Sure.
So I'm going to try and make it sound like I'm a wrestler who's trying to explain to you why this stuff is going on. I'll tell you the truth. One of the nicest compliments I had that wasn't actually directed at me was a few years ago. Somebody had sent, when JR had just his website, you could send him questions, right? and somebody sent him and asked him what it was like to work with me as his color man. And he said, I never looked at Les as my color man. I looked at him as an analyst. And I said, thank you, JR, because that's what I tried to be. Don Curtis was good at that. He didn't do it a lot, but he was amazing at it, right? So that's what I try to be a current or former wrestler that tells you why this is working or why you should go back to it. I'll tell you what drives me nuts now when I do weekend training camps at some of these, for some of the independents, and if they have a Saturday night show, they'll ask me to sit, if they're taping it, sit in and do color. And guys are so sloppy, and it's not just at the independent level; it's at the top level as well. But you're trying to pin somebody, and you haven't anchored both his shoulders. I'm going to mention, and I've come to where if I'm going to do your TV this Saturday night, right, and these guys that I'm training are going to be part of the show, I'm going to say, look, boys, if you're not anchored both shoulders tonight, I'm going to call it. If you're not hooking so, you cannot hold me in an abdominal stretch unless you hook your damn left foot toe behind my left calf, you stupid asshole.
That's
right. I can walk out of it. I don't have to fight out of it. I can walk out of it. Details.
Yes.
And they paint. And the sad thing is, Rodney, I think I don't think it's consciously, but I think most of these kids subconsciously. Well, everybody's smart. And my answer to that is you aren't very smart if you said that. Well,
many an argument I have had.
Comparison.
Yes.
Well, everybody knows it's a work. Everybody knows that the best TV series are a work, but they fall in line. They know this Academy Award-winning movie is a work. But guess what? Why are they watching it and not you? Or why can't they watch you for more than 5 minutes and they can watch that for 2 hours? Because it's better acting and you're not an actor. It's a better storyline and they're sticking with the storyline and taking you along with them.
Sure.
It's that simple and that hard all at once, right?
Sure. Absolutely. So that leads us to the next part. You're out of the commentary. Well, I do want to ask one question.
Sure.
That you've alluded to the last time, and I was going to give you an opportunity to talk about it because you wanted to talk about it. I want you to talk about how Dad got you fired in Georgia.
For those listening or watching, it wasn't like Ronnie set out to get us fired. It was by accident, really, is the way it happened. I'm sure you heard that too, right?
Oh, sure.
You didn't realize. Ronnie, I was running the tours in Ohio, Michigan, and West Virginia for Georgia Championship Wrestling, WCW, whatever the hell you want to call it. And Ronnie was helping me sometimes he wasn't. But the point was, Ole and Barnett were arguing or feuding over, having a pissing contest, basically, or who's the boss, who's the real boss, this and that. So I get a phone call at my hotel room wherever I'm at on the road, and it's Barnett. And Barnett's saying, Les, I need you to do this or do that or do the other. Okay, Jim, fine, got you. Okay, so I'm packing. An hour later, my phone rings again. This is Ole. And he's telling me to do just the opposite of what Jim told me to do. What the hell am I supposed to do? I want to do my job. But my job now is it's split. It's left and it's right. It's north and it's south. Who do I piss off? Or who do I, do what they told me? And it was frustrating and it was confusing. And your dad, he understood that too. And so I was down in Atlanta. I go down there every once in a while. And we were at TV station. Some guys were cutting some promos. And so we were done and a bunch of us stand there talking. And your dad mentioned that how frustrating it was to have Ole and Jim both coming up with something needed to be done, but it's totally different. And what were we supposed to do? And I'm sitting there, oh, Ronnie, I wish you hadn't said that and I'm not going to mention the guy's name because your dad got along with him and I did too, but he was a conduit right to Ole, right? If you sneezed, I knew Ole would hear that you sneezed, right? So once the little thing broke up with all this talking, your dad and I were headed out together. I said, Ole's going to hear about what you said, Ron. I said, so and so, I bet you it's going to get back there. Next day, we're in the office. Ole comes through the door. Les, Ronnie, my office now. Turn in your key card to get in the gate. Turn in your, for this and that. You guys are fired. I run this company. I'm a hard-headed Irishman. Okay. Your dad, I grabbed your dad by the arm. I said, Ronnie, don't lower yourself. Come on, let's go. Because he was going to try and explain it, right?
Yeah.
And I'd known Ole too damn long, right? There was if Ole made his mind up, he had made his mind up. His wife could have come in and beat him over the head with a rolling pin. He wouldn't have changed his mind either. So that's how it happened. And I used to tease your dad. You got us fired, right? That's cool. you gonna send me a check or something? But that's how it happened. And in Ole's book, he mentions it was about booking. And I cornered him down in Mobile at a reunion. I said, have you lost your mind, Rock? I said, or is your memory just failing you? What are you talking about? I said, I never had anything to do with the booking. I ran the box office and stuff. Why would I be arguing with you about booking? I didn't even see half the matches. I was too busy, in the box office. So, but, that's what happened. But I'll tell you what. Your dad and the great referees from that era, I wish the hell they were all around now, because Charles Robinson is probably, there's some good referees there too, but it's a whole different ball game. It's totally a whole different ball game. It is.
Wow. Well, we got the chance to get that story. I know that you wanted to tell it. There we go. We got the opportunity
I wanted
to tell
you
it.
to cry and say, Les, I feel so bad that my dad, let me send you a big check.
No,
right?
all you have to do is mention Ole, and that's all you need to know.
And you know what? Ole by himself is not that bad.
And I'll tell you, when just to follow up, when Dad, the first person Ole called when he went back to WCW was Dad, to come back and with this partnership that they had before in 1990.
Right.
And Dad, something was mentioned. They were going to get into that little story there, and Ole said, "Don't ask me why I fired you. Just don't. Just let's move on."
Because he didn't know, didn't remember himself.
Well, we came to the conclusion he just couldn't afford to pay him anymore.
Maybe that's it too.
Because Dad was, he'd been there for years, and every time he would get mad and get ready to go somewhere else, they would jack him up, and he got up there.
When Ole took over, all of our money got cut back.
Yeah. And certainly, I get it. It's hard. Many people think, oh, well, it's easy to run. No, it's when you're booking and owning it is two different things. You just come in, you don't really worry about the gates and paying the bills. But when you're owning it, totally different situation for sure.
Well, Ole is so frugal. I'm sure you've heard some stories.
Cheap.
That Jimmy Crockett Jr. said, I will buy you a new Mercedes so you get that damn Ford that's 150 years old out of my parking lot.
That's funny. He'd park it right in the front door.
Ole was riding with me up on the tours one time, and we were making stops at a couple TV stations that were airing the shows, right, to do some PR with the management people. And I said, I'm going to ask you, what? I said, that sport coat, that looks exactly like the one you had back in the 60s. You know why? I said, why? He said, it's the same.
Hey, he saved his money. He was good. He did good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So after you left commentary, or you not left commentary, you're still involved in other ways. What's next? What comes next?
Wow. Well, once Ron sold Knoxville to Barnett, I stayed there. Then we decided to disagree. We agreed to disagree. or actually Ralph Freed and I agreed to disagree. That's where I ended up deciding. So I went down to Mobile for a while with Ron. Then Flair, Mulligan, and Jimmy Crockett Jr. bought Barnett out here in Knoxville. So they called me and said Channel 10 will continue to run their television, but they asked if they bring me back because they had had a good working relationship with me. So they made me a good offer. So right back to Knoxville I came. And then once they closed the doors, I stayed here for a while, was doing some freelance work. Ann Gunkel started another small promotion that Jerry Oates was the booker, and I did a couple TVs for them before she shut down. But I was going to Puerto Rico for Carlos. At the time, he was running Barbados and Trinidad, which are English speaking. So I'd go over there and spend a couple days. His brother, or one of his guys, his partners, we'd go down the other end of the island to small studio, and I would do the openings and closes in English, and then the voice, the play-by-play in English. And so I was doing several things. And anyway, Bob Polk and I here put together a weekly magazine show, wrestling magazine show. And actually it was good. And it was a company trying to sell it for us in syndication, and they had to go under. So we never got it sold. Anyway, so I decided to move back to Ohio. My dad had passed away a couple of years before, and my mom wasn't getting any younger. So I moved back to Cincinnati to help her. And I got involved with Mario Savoldi up in New England. He was running a promotion up there. I was doing his. Lou Thez was my color commentator on the shows up there. Talk about a good analyst, right? You either believe him or else. But anyway, and so I moved back to Cincinnati, and I was working actually, John Perillo Performance. We trained bodybuilders, and I got involved with bodybuilding. I thought, okay, I'm working with guys. I'm going to do one show just to say that I've done it, and I won my first show, won my class, so I was hooked. So yeah, there you go. So I did over 7 years, from age 46 to age 54. I did 13 different competitions, and plus training bodybuilders as well. And then during that time, Cornette started Smoky Mountain and called me. I was in the midst of a contest, and I told him at the time, I said, you guys are doing 4 shows back to back. I've got to eat every 3 hours, 6 times a day. You don't want me down there because I'm going to eat every 3 hours. If your show has to wait for me to finish, you're going to have to wait. So I'm probably better off right where I'm at until, I get through this. And so that's what I was doing up there. So then I finally started with Jimmy here. And of course that ran its course. But actually how I got into training wrestlers, Bob Harmon, who's a Cincinnati guy, was the first beautiful Bobby before Bobby Eaton, wrestled for WWWF for Vince, and was managed by Abdullah Farouk, Ernie Roth. Bob actually broke in Boston where I broke in. Oh, actually, Dusty Rhodes broke in Boston where I broke in only 9 years after I did. Luke Graham broke in there, as did Rufus R. Jones. But anyway, so Bob Harmon calls me and he says, this guy has got a wrestling school and he's got an idiot as a trainer. And
do we know the name of this idiot?
Yeah, I forget his name. That's how good he was, right? Anyway, and Bob said, and if he doesn't get a decent trainer, somebody knows what they're doing, he's going to lose his students. And I said, okay, why are you telling me this? Well, you're the guy who should be the trainer. I said, you're out of your mind. That's crazy. So he convinces me to go to a show that they're putting on. I lived on the east side of Cincinnati. They weren't putting it on the west side. So I pick him up and we go to the show, and the owner's there, obviously. This is the first independent show, Rodney, that I've ever seen. And I thought, oh my God, my business has gone to hell at this point. Right? So I'm watching these kids, And this one match is in the ring, and and the heel goes out and gets a chair. And I tell the way he's holding it, he don't know what to do with it, right? And he cold cocks his opponent, rung his bell. The guy didn't get knocked out, but somebody had to help him out of the ring, right? So Bob sitting next to me, and the owner of this school was sitting on the other side. And I said to Bob, I said, damn, that kid didn't know what he was doing. That chair shouldn't even have had it. How long has he been wrestling? Bob said, I'll check. So he leans over to the guy, goes back. He said, he's been to 4 practices. I said, what? First of all, he doesn't belong in the ring in a match. Second of all, a chair is for him to sit in is the only thing he needs a damn chair for, right? So at that point, I said, I'm going to try this, right? I don't know if I'm going to like it. I don't know if I'm going to be good at it, but I'm going to try it. So I went in the next week, and they were sharing a facility with a martial arts school. And so they were only training once a week. I said, that is not going to work. So you want to get in there Saturday, Sunday, then that's when we're going to train, Saturday and Sunday. So I told the kids my first day, you know what? I watched your show. We're starting from scratch all over again because you don't know what you're doing or how to do it. And so that was my first experience with training guys. And I found out, A, I enjoyed it. B, I was pretty damn good at it, right? So the guy whose school I found out he was full of crap. I mean, he was a con artist too. He, we just wanted to be around the wrestling business and really didn't know much. So we brought a couple of students and I talked to me about this. And so started looking around and decided to leave him and try to do this the right way. I said, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it right. So that's how HWA, Heartland Wrestling Association, began. Actually, Les Thatcher's Main Event Pro Wrestling Camp, but we had to have somewhere for them to try what they were doing. To be honest, Rodney, of all the things I've done in the wrestling business, promoting is actually the thing I like least. I mean, I like it, but it's the least, right? It's the biggest pain in the rear end
Exactly right.
of all the things, right? But we needed to have, so that's how HWA was born. And this was back in like 92. And so that's how it all started. And we were running some small shows and I was putting out some good kids. And so the first time some of my kids got a shot at some dark matches, or actually just as enhancement talent, was when WWE was or WWF at the time, was going to be at Cincinnati Gardens, and I took 4 kids down. So anyway, long story short, toward the end of the 90s, Bruce Pritchard called me and said that WWF might be interested in signing me. And he said, I've got to be in Louisville. I'm going to drive up and visit with you. Okay. So Bruce and I kind of worked out a deal. And he was going to go back and get the wheels in motion. And of course, as you probably know as well, the wheels in corporate America's motion are very slow and they grind. There's so many channels to go through. You could die before they get to the end of the thing. So anyway, before it ever happened, Gary Juster from WCW called me. And he said, have you signed with WWF yet? I said, no, but how do you know I was talking to him? Well, I know. He said, because JJ and I were just talking, Dylan, JJ and I were just talking about, expanding our developmental, and your name came up. You haven't signed yet. I said, no. Well, don't until you talk to us. So they sent me a plane ticket and flew to Atlanta. And, met everybody and talked. And finally they said, what would be an ideal setup for you? So I told him. He said, okay, sign here. Right. So that's how I signed with WCW initially and moved into a larger facility and started fixing it up. Of course, I had no idea that they were rupturing money at that particular point in time and wouldn't be in business, like 18 months later or 2 years, whatever it was. So, as they had to start cutting back on their expenses because of the loss of revenue. And me being the newest expense, I was the first expense to go. But at that point, JR and I spoke, and the developmental was in Memphis at the time, but it wasn't going well there for whatever reason. I don't know. But I was told that we have a deadline on this. We've told Memphis to either get it together or we're going to pull the deal. And he said, I can't see them getting it together. Doesn't seem like that's what's going to happen. So hang tight. You're next in line. So that's how I ended up with WWE as a trainer. And you know what, Rodney, I hate to do anything I'm not good at. And if I'm blowing my own horn here, I'm going to blow it because I'm damn good at a trainer. I am. And I enjoy it. But you know what? Here's the crazy thing. I guess I've always been that because Scott Casey thinks that I, had something to do with his advancement. JJ Dillon says he came in 71. He was pulling my coattail basically as a tag team partner for a while. And so that's how it happened. And then MTV came along, and the True Life series. I'm a pro wrestler, and that just kicked it off for us. I mean, the crazy thing, I don't know who it was, but the producer there that actually lined it up with me. So there were a couple schools closer to them and their home base, and but how much are you going to pay us? Well, I would have liked to have said that, but I also realized that I'm going to get more publicity off of MTV worldwide than I could have if I sold my house, my car, and every damn thing else. I couldn't afford what I'm going to get out of this for free, right? So you don't have to worry about paying me. Just bring your butt on down here and let's do this, right? So, but that the MTV things from MSNBC Special Edition covered us. We were on ABC 2020 along with the Power Plant. And plus all the stations in Cincinnati, all the network stations covered us. There was a network affiliate in St. Louis and came and did a two-parter at our school, Columbus, Ohio. I mean, that MTV thing kicked it in the butt for us, right? And made us nationally known.
And that shows the difference between being experienced and being not experienced. You saw the value in the publicity. They could not see it.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
And I thought, wow, somebody's crazy. Because every time, it's funny, every time that show aired, at the gym's phone would start ringing and we start getting email requests for information, right? So it had run. You didn't even have to watch it. Here's the funny thing. Of all the True Life series, that was the only one that had to run 90 minutes. Banks Tarver was a gentleman who was the mover and shaker from MTV. And he had to go to argue with his bosses to get to 90 minutes, right? He said, I can't tell this story in 60. I've got to have 90. So they told him, okay, you get 90 on first run, but when it goes to reruns, you have to cut it back to 60. Never got cut back to 60 because the numbers are so good at 90, And it's for anybody paying attention. It's out there on YouTube, and it's so long. It's in sections. I think now you got to get 2 or 3 sections to find it. But it shows Helmsley, Triple H, and China ascending to the top spot. Tony Atlas is the guy who's been there and fallen off the cliff, and is trying to get his act together after being a big star. And our guy is the beginning. It was a great. Wow. I thought it was great for wrestling in general.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So now you are doing seminars, I do believe. Tell us about the seminars.
Well, I can do one-day seminars. I'll tell you what I enjoy doing the most, Rodney, is weekend training camps because you get more done. First of all, the first day you're with those kids, they're nervous, and you don't know them, right? So to me, by doing it 2 days, the second day they're comfortable, you're comfortable, you have an idea of what they can offer, where they're at, and what they need, right? So it makes more sense, I think. And it's I have my fingerprints have been on Adam Cole, Drew Gulak, Tim Thatcher, Blade, who is in AEW now. BJ Whitmer, who's a producer for AEW, is one of my guys, a wrestler. Of course, Nigel McGuinness, one of the best champions that Ring of Honor ever had, now does color on 205. And so I'm proud of all these guys and proud of, being a part of their careers and watching them grow. It's like my kids, it's like seeing your own children, grow up, for God's sake. So, yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. And actually, Ron Fuller and Ron's moving back here to Knoxville. And we've talked about getting our band back together because we did so well here in the 70s with Southeastern. And he's got some ideas and some things to do. So I think maybe we're going to hook up again and do a few things together.
Well, that's exciting. Can't wait to hear about that. And I'm sure everybody around the Knoxville area will, and all around East Tennessee will be interested in knowing all about that. Please let us know just as soon as it happens. This is the way you get in touch with Les Thatcher. They can set up with seminars or your training camps through your email. Just give him a buzz here. Just drop him an email and see about getting a seminar in your area. And you've heard about it.
Sure. Absolutely.
I mean, think about it.
Right now we're doing the Brian Pillman anthology 4 DVD set. That came from Brian being a Cincinnati boy. When he passed, he had the car wreck, and so actually we met at Perillo's when I was training bodybuilders. A friend of his who trained with us, a bodybuilder who trained with us, he came in one day, and but anyway, after had the ankle fused, he had come up to our place trying to figure out how to work around the fused ankle, and it was confusing for him. So anyway, when he passed away, he said, let's have a little show to honor Brian. The operative word here is little, because it never became little. So the first show in 1998 was at the Norwood Junior High School gym. That's where Brian grew up and where he went to school. And we didn't know what we would have, right? We, Benoit and Jericho were our main event from WCW. Of course, Steve Austin, having been Brian's tag team partner, was part of the deal. Sonny, Candido, and Al Snow from ECW. But we didn't know what we'd draw. And it started drizzling rain in mid-morning of the day of the show. And I'm a nervous wreck over all this stuff, right? Rodney, we had people lined up down around the building in the rain to get into this damn show. We turned away almost 400 people.
Wow. And where was this located? Where was this located?
Norwood, which is a sub municipality in Cincinnati. It's almost right in the heart of Cincy. It's where Brian grew up. And so anyway, we turned away over 400 people for the show.
Wow.
And had people, just a hell of a crowd. And it just came off great. And of course, a lot of the guys were independents, but they came, we didn't know what it was going to be. So I got about 2 hours sleep that night and got to get up early the next morning, start hauling guys back to the airport. And I sat at my desk in the gym. That was after that first show the next day. And I thought, we have actually done something good. We weren't sure what we would do, but we've done something good. Should we try to do this again? And in either my infinite wisdom or my insanity, I said, yes, let's do this again. And it grew, it just took on a life of its own. So there were 4 Pillman shows, 99, 2000, 2001. And the unique thing was that we had the cooperation of ECW, WCW, and WWE. And if you want to see talent from all 3 of those companies under the same roof on the same night, there was only one place in the world. That was at the Brian Pillman Memorial Show, And as this thing grew, like this, the second year it started, but then the third and fourth year, I had guys calling me from all over the country wanting to work on the show. Won't charge, pay my own hotel. We're always, we can't, there's no more room. I had guys offering to pay me to be on this show.
Wow.
Yes. Yes, seriously. But the second year, it got bigger, and then the third year and the fourth, it was just crazy. The guys worked for nothing. The big companies paid their plane ticket. We put them up in a hotel. We fed them. And the crazy thing is, they're working for nothing. It's a charity show, but nobody laid down. There was nobody that phoned it in. Everybody busted their ass. I'm so proud of the wrestlers, the volunteers, anybody that worked on those things. Because when we started the second year, we formed a crew of people, like, as to check with transportation and hotels and this and that and the other thing. And we started meeting once a week, 8 months out, to be sure this thing was going to be done right. And of course, it became something special every year. The second year is '99 was the last big show that Mark Curtis ever was able to work. In 2000, the Benoit Regal match, which is still a classic, and myself and Dr. Tom and other guys use it as a training tool. Dean Malenko announced his retirement in 2001. And so there's always something. But the crazy thing, you and I were talking about the 2-hour shows, right? Or the 2.5-hour shows.
Sure.
And we had so much going on. I'll give you an example from the last 2001. We opened the doors at noon. And this is for Polaroids with the Stars. We had 12 wrestlers alternating off the camera setups, right? Starting at noon, if you get the whole package. At 5 o'clock, Independent Showcase, which is HWA, OVW, and any of the independent guys that we may have brought, that we felt fit in the show at that point, we were brought in. They went from 5 to 7. We broke at 7, came back at 17 with the main show. Right?
Wow.
Which was the stars from WWE, the WCW, and ECW. Plus, we had auctions. We J.R. Stetson, woman's gown, D'Lo's chest protector, right? Flair's robe. Plus, Joe the Belster, the guy that made the spinner belt that Cena had, right? Joe every year made a belt for the Pillman Memorial using my T-shirt design as the main plate, right? And then the rest were, all about. He gave that to us to raffle off, right, every year. And it was crazy. But the thing of it is like that last year, we ran from almost 12 hours.
Wow.
Nobody left early. No, it was, I'm so proud of the people that ran the shows and the shows themselves. And of course, over that 4 years, we raised a little over $120,000 for the Pillman Memorial Fund.
Awesome. So. Absolutely awesome. And people can get a copy of those events?
Yes, it's there's four disc set, covers all 4 shows, plus a lot of extras. The guys that were there, doing interviews about Brian and their remembrances. Plus, the 1 year I had a radio show in Cincinnati during this time, right? A 3-hour Wednesday night main event on an all sports talk show. And in '99, we had a remote from Cincinnati Gardens for the Pillman show. So Joe Dombrowski, who did all the editing, part of that is on the extras, right?
Wow.
And where, my guys are interviewing different Meltzer and Foley and so forth and so on. But there's so much on there. Over 15 hours of content total on the 4 disc. And you can get that at brianpillmanshow.com, joe-dombrowski.com, or prowrestlinglibrary.com. Joe handles all 3 of those. But it's we didn't know what it would do, right? And there's also, through Joe, there's he calls it the Lost Developmental tapes, but Wrestling from the Heartland. It's the HWA stuff, right? That wasn't part of the library that went to WWE. And so those are also available there. But we had no idea how the Pillman thing would go. But then, as we're talking to people, that those shows had reached such mythical proportions because of the Pillman, Regal thing and all that. And of course, if you weren't at those shows, you haven't seen any of this
That's
because it was never put out before. And 2001, the very first ever John Cena Randy Orton match is on that show. They were both still at OVW at the time. They weren't even on the main roster. So, but yeah, they're out, and it's great. It really is. And the only way we could have put it out was with Brian Jr. because Joe came to my house when I was getting ready to move, and he collected all my discs and all my tapes, and that's how we started with the HWA stuff. And he found all these Pillman shows which had never been edited, had never been anything. We do. I said we can't. Why? I said because the rights to it belongs to the Pillman family. I have no rights to do that. So by luck, he met Brian Jr. So Brian worked it out with his mom. And so we were able to do this.
Wow.
And we were both just sitting open mouthed with, damn, these things are flying. I mean, he's a one-man shipping department and it's driving him nuts, right? But they're but again, the events had reached mythical proportions, and now you can see all those matches. And if you've never, I did a podcast with a young man from Franklin, Ohio yesterday. He was at the 2000 show, and it's just been crazy. But yeah, they're special. And the best thing is you watch these and realize these top stars are there working for nothing. But nobody phones it in, brother. Nobody. Everybody busts their
100%. 100%.
Yes,
So
sir.
are you doing the commentary on all those?
Well, what we're doing is Joe is a good play-by-play guy. He really is. So on the HWA as well as on the Pillman, I'm more or less doing the background stuff, right? Like this guy is on the show because of this, and guess this is what happened behind the scenes, and Joe's doing,
Doing the play-by-play.
Play-by-play, yeah. But yeah, we're trying to cover the human interest part of it too, right? Well, okay, the night of the Pillman, the night of the Benoit Regal match, we're at Schmidt Fieldhouse at Xavier University. Got 2,000 people in the building, and realize there's all kinds of matches on this show. And when those guys started, you if you watch the tape, you'll hear a couple idiots saying boring because Chris and Regal are actually wrestling. So the boring guys saying boring had never seen a real wrestling match probably. So what's that? What are they doing? But as this match builds, you can feel the building, the anticipation, right? I'm back kneeling down in front of the sound guys, which is, I don't know, 20 yards maybe from the ring. Before the finish, I'm at ringside. I'm leaning on the apron. I want to be a part of this match so bad, right? Because I know where it's going, right? I had to feel it.
Right.
The dressing rooms are in the basement. The boys down there can hear the people starting to, right? You know the rumble I'm talking about.
Yes.
Now they're up pushing each other to get a better look. And when Benoit hit the crossface for the finish, that building in unison, 2,000 people came to their feet and tore that friggin' building down, brother.
Wow.
I mean, well, Dr. Tom will tell you the same thing I'm about to say. We both use that as a teaching tool. And when we watch it as much as we've seen it, we kind of still get that little buzz, right? Because we were there. And that's the kind of excitement that came to these Pillman shows, it's just, and why? I don't have a clue, but they were all special. Every damn one of them, boy, they really were.
Absolutely beautiful. Well, we can't let you get out of here without giving us the state of what your opinion of wrestling today is. So let's.
You got another 2 hours or what?
Well, we need it. We'll go with
sports entertainment, which is not necessarily professional wrestling. There's some good workers, but workers are, and there's a lot of sports entertainers. One is not the other, actually.
Sure.
There's some good stuff. I think all the companies during the pandemic panicked, and they're throwing all this like cinematic nonsense and monsters and horror movies. And I just hope that when they get people back in the building, they get some common sense back and temper it down just a little bit. There's some good wrestlers, but they're not wrestling. That is the problem.
Right.
It's gotten hokey, to be honest. And well, you grew up around a man who started the business not too much after me, 8 years after me, basically. And so you understand what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
And I know a lot of young people, oh, he's bitter. I'm not bitter. I'm bitter because I don't get $1 million a year from somebody, I guess. But listen, I do believe that during my career, and not because of me, Rodney, but just from the 60s to the 80s was the golden era of wrestling, I think. There were so many top workers. And I think the big difference between the workers then and now is we were working every night. And you never worked with guys as green as yourself. It was always with a veteran. Exceptional once in a while. And you learned to work because you had to. And you were doing it. I make a joke. I say, Rodney, if you call me at 3:00 in the morning, call a spot over the phone, I'll get up and run the damn thing. You probably won't run it very well, but I'll run it, right? And today, I don't understand why you want to lay a whole match out in the dressing room. I'll give you another one of my examples that I tell kids. I said, if we have a Q&A on Friday night, I say, how many guys here have a living girlfriend or a wife? And hold your hand up. Okay. I've got some homework for you. When you get home tonight and you get in bed with your wife or your girlfriend, say, honey, we're going to make love. Now, when I start to do this, you start to moan. And then when and I'm building an angle, story.
Exactly.
And I see the guy snickering and trying to cover their mouth. I said, it's all right, laugh. I meant it. It's meant to be funny. I'm being sarcastic.
Absurd, yes. Yeah,
but my point is this. You wouldn't do that to your girlfriend or your wife because you know them intimately. You understand their favorite color, what they don't like, their favorite, all that, right? But you would never do what I just said to you. Yet Saturday night, you're going to sit in a dressing room in a town you've never been in to wrestle in front of people you've never seen before in your life. And you're going to sit in the dressing room and lay out a match step by step. You don't know if those people are going to like any of it or all of it, right? That's why you should learn. I don't care if Vince pays you to lay it all out in the back. I got to take his money and lay it out in the back. But we're all humans. We all make mistakes. You better know how to make adjustments to that, because if let's say you and I are having a match and you're going to come off the top rope at 20 minutes and beat me with some elaborate thing. Let's say 5 minutes in, you pop a hamstring. Not bad enough that we got to go home, but bad enough you can't get to that top rope. We have to change the finish. If you don't know how, we're going to, excuse us, ladies and gentlemen, we have to call timeout, go back to the dressing room and talk for another half hour to figure out how we're going to entertain you, right? Yes. The art of the work it's not totally dead, but it's sure disappearing at a damn rapid rate. That's what I'm afraid. And these guys are good athletes. Jack Briscoe told me years ago, he said, these kids are great athletes. They're better athletes than we were. I said, yeah. He said, but Les, I can't watch it. I can't. And my comment, I said, Willie Mays is God knows how old, but he still loves baseball and watches it. Bart Starr is how old and still loves football and watches it. Jack Briscoe has given his life to professional wrestling, and yet he can't watch it. There's something wrong with that picture. I'm sorry, there is. And I'm not adverse to change, as you know, because we've talked about that. I made changes in television and magazines, and so forth and so on. But I've never changed.
This. Huh? My question is this. Who thinks this is working?
Probably the people that have blindfolded and collected money off of it. We talk, every week on this channel, and it's
who thinks this is working? To me, if you have 800,000 people watching your TV show per week, that's a failure. It's an absolute failure to me. Not when Memphis TV was 300,000 people, and you're national and you're getting 800,000. But it's not that it's something you're doing. Obviously, the people cannot understand. They just don't appreciate your product. I don't get it.
I agree. And it's a shame. And part of it is, I think, Rodney, that people that are, the business you grew up in, the business I grew up in, bookers were ex-wrestlers.
Yes.
Right. Now bookers are anybody, right?
Yes.
The baker, the candlestick maker, or whoever. It's like, Tony Khan's been trading tapes since he was 12. I don't care if he's been trading tapes since he was 1. Trading tapes and being a booker are light years apart, for Christ. I mean, I've been watching doctor shows since Ben Casey in the 1950s, right? So with Dr. Kildare and all these, you gonna let me perform surgery on you? Well, of course not. Why? I've watched all these shows, and that's what you're telling me. This guy has to do, and you know what? People that I believe in what they tell me say he's a really nice guy, great to work for, and I'm sure he is. But I don't care how many tapes he's watched, he's not a wrestler. And I don't know if you watch the show, but it's too frantic. Everything, there's a run-in on every match. There's a schmoz at the end. I mean, they've got 13
You're talking about AEW, right?
Yeah.
That are setting themselves, just like WCW, for failure. They're doing it. They are going the exact same route they're going, as far as I'm concerned.
I said to somebody,
and the result's going to be the same.
I said to somebody the other day, I said, Vince is wearing thin because they're doing the same finishes over and over and over, the same angles, everything looks the same. And I said, and they've burned people out. But when did he actually take over the country? Let's say 85, 86, where you really knew that WWE was going to be or WWF at the time was going to be the company, right? I said, but here's the thing. AEW is doing stuff that at 100 times faster than Vince did it. So they're going to burn themselves out quicker too, I think. Plus, they've got now 4 TV shows. And they've been in business less than 2 years. To me, okay, Rodney, you and I are going to open a start TV show. We're going to start territory. Okay, this first TV, let's be sure it's as close to perfect as we can make it before we start a second one. Let's hire everybody that walks around. I mean, I don't know what the roster looks like in AEW, but I can tell you they got enough wrestlers under contract to have 3 companies, for Christ's sake.
Sure they do. And here you and they do the old WCW. They bring somebody in. They don't know what they're going to do with them. Right. It's just a name. Okay, fine.
Well,
put them on the card.
And yeah. I said this on my podcast this past week. I said, listen, I'm not knocking that the Khan family obviously no business because they're billionaires, right? I can't, nothing, not negative about that. But I said, the kid's, he has never been in the wrestling business. And I'm not saying that it's money, but to me, leave Vince's name and the WWE brand out of your conversations.
Yes,
You're
do not let that,
bear.
do not. Well, many people criticize Nick Goulas, but his number one rule is, I do not promote my competition. Let them promote themselves.
When I was doing the TV in Atlanta with Gordon in 72 and 73, we never heard of Gunkel. Who's Gunkel?
Exactly right.
Well, Bischoff found out when he had Shivani mentioned that Mick Foley has won a title, and half the audience switched over to find out.
Yes, it's a terrible mistake.
Yeah,
absolute terrible mistake to use your time to promote somebody else's show. And don't get me wrong. We watched Mid-South. Bill Watts did it repeatedly. Sat there talking about the junkyard dog, and the dog was gone, never to return. He sat there and talked about Vince McMahon's show. Why are you giving any attention from your show to him? And Jarrett used to do it ad nauseum. I mean, every single week showing the whole who's who of who's been there and who Lawler's beat, but they didn't realize you're promoting your competition that's coming to town next week. Makes no sense to me. Never
I've
had.
often wondered, now Vince has finally changed, but it used to be if you were Bill Smith and worked for the competition, we had, even no matter how much you were over, we're going to change your name to something else. Why? Yes. He's already over, right?
Yes.
It's ego.
Yeah, exactly what it is. The last show I watched, I think it was either Raw or SmackDown, I forget. But this whole thing with Alexa Bliss and Baszler at the end, I'm thinking, you're promoting a whole tour coming up in July. Are you going to do this in your house show? How?
Some of the stuff that they're putting out there now with the false audience noise, right? Mm-hmm. They better take that audience noise with them, because some of that stuff, the live fans are going to crap all over. They are.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. It's very sad. I had the opportunity, and I'm going to talk about on another episode, but I had the opportunity of seeing a tag match from Chattanooga TV. Harry was sick that week, so Michael St. John was doing the commentary. It was the Blonde Bombers, Wayne Ferris, Larry Latham, against Dutch Mantell and Terry Sawyer. And normally what I would do is turn the sound down, but I didn't. And it was awesome to see. And I know I watched it the first time around, but that was just from that studio. That was an awesome match just for that market. And right. those guys put 100% into that. Bobby Eaton was involved. It was great to see it.
I have fans, people who aren't in the wrestling business, just happen to be fans. And I in the last month or so, it's what I call the diversion finish, where you come out on the ramp 100 yards from me, and yes. I panic in the ring, and the other guy pulls me up. How many times have you seen that in WWE?
3 times in a show.
Yeah.
Or it's the same thing. They're just sitting at the table.
And these fans are calling it the distraction finish. And I'm thinking, so and I believe this. If I'm teaching a class now, I'll say, guys, let's pretend that everybody is smart. Okay.
Sure.
Then your strongest weapon is the element of surprise. Yet your telegraph and everything you do, I know you're going to do it 5 minutes before you do it.
Yes. And a backstab is just every day for them. It's one. I know we're going to wrap it up here just shortly. What's wrong? Why is tag team wrestling just basically non-existent? It's just I don't know what you need to call it. It's gone. And when it used to be, it was the major draw. What happened there?
Well, Vince didn't care about it, so he phased it out. So everybody else has basically done the same thing. But stories aren't connected and smooth, right? They'll drop a storyline in a heartbeat and go to something else. And it makes, I mean, not just AEW, it's everybody, right?
Sure. Vince leads the pack, and everybody else just copies him. And that's a mistake. If anybody gets in the wrestling business, go ahead. I'll let you say it.
No, I was going to say, all these companies, you say, well, this one's better, that one's better, the other one's better. Impact, Ring of Honor. But if you watch them all, they're all basically the same.
Exactly right.
And I've said like you're saying, you give me a couple $1 million if I'm going to do something. Well, first of all, if you give me a couple $1 million, I'm not going to do a damn thing. I'm going to retire. But
if you get a couple of $1 million and your point is to do wrestling.
Yes. Why? Because you stand out. Because everybody else isn't doing it,
Exactly
or just
right.
to a varying degree, right?
Exactly right. And all Vince has to do is just, if once everybody thinks they've got it, all he has to do is change the name, the rules of the game, and then they're going to play catch up again. And you just can't. You have to have your own niche.
Right.
Do your own thing. If you're going to just copy Vince's show, there's already 8 hours of that or more to
Monday
watch
Night
every
Wars,
week.
there were two different companies, right?
Yes.
If I wanted to see hot wrestling on the undercard, I watched WCW. If I wanted to see top guys, I watched WWE. But
Yes.
they were different, right?
Yes. And when WCW disappeared, so did whoever's watching WCW, they also disappeared because it didn't translate into WWE ratings.
And and everybody said, "Well, will all those fans come back?" Hell, I don't know. But here's the idea: maybe if you try, find out.
Sure.
But I think that's part of it too, Rodney. And I've had this conversation with several people over the last few years. It took so long to transform the industry into what it is now. They realized to switch it back, it's not going to be overnight.
No.
Right.
No.
They're going to take a beating, but somebody needs to do it. You're right.
It's the infrastructure was completely destroyed. Yeah. And they realized it too late. They didn't realize, or maybe Vince did and he didn't care. He just thought, well, I can just make whatever. Right. But the destruction of the territory system was the destruction of the infrastructure to develop new talent. Yeah. And then as the new talent was not there, what did they have to do? They had to take the old wore out talent, if you will,
you know what I
and just keep paying them more and more and more, and the crowds get less and less.
I did a guest coach week at the Performance Center. What an amazing facility. I think when I was down there was like 85 athletes on the roster down. And some of these monsters are looking really good, right? But where are they?
That's a good question. I watched two shows. I watched SmackDown and Raw. That's the only two I watch. And I fast forward through them and turn the sound off. And that's just the way I watch them. But I found that I can last through. If I sit there and listen to it in regular time, I turn it off. They lose me. The commentary itself is so annoying that I can't put up with most of that, and so I have to turn it off.
I'll tell you what. Like I have Friday night, on SmackDown. I'm thinking, I hope that when they get to live audiences, that they leave the fake crowd noise, because I'd like to listen to Pat Matson because he's fresh, and he's actually good. He jumps up on the desk when Nakamura is coming to, and you know what? I like that, and I'm not a clown. But the point, why do I like it? I like it because he's the only announcer that does it,
and he's different.
It's really him. He's not putting on, right? He's just. And somebody said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, I think that the bosses down there know that he doesn't have to do this, right? He's got another gig. So you start tying him down and tell you can't do that, can't do that. He's going to go home." And he's the freshest thing that's on there right now, honestly, But it's and that's the thing too, as you're, growing up through the business with your dad. When Dusty passed away, people were talking about you were there, and I said yes, and I said, we're talking about this, that, and the other thing. I said, the one thing you don't understand, Dusty was the only Dusty. So he stood out. Everybody is a gimmick now, so nobody stands out.
Right.
Right. There was only one Dusty, and now there could have been, what's his name, Troy T. Tyler in Memphis, or
right.
But they didn't know.
But he wasn't Dusty. But no stretch of the imagination.
No.
He had that gift of gab, and could have been, if it wasn't for the accident, he would have been a huge star. Make no mistake about it.
And see, that's the thing now.
That whole Bruise Brother thing was really about to kick off.
Yeah. Everybody has to be a gimmick because we have a brand. And that means you have to have a gimmick so we can sell your gimmicks and your T-shirts and your thises and your that's and your caps and one thing and another. And the way some of these people talk on television, they don't talk that way.
And
realize.
and I think you hit it right on the head. Legitimacy is missing, and that is the reason, in my opinion, they cannot make that emotional connection of a Whitey Caldwell, of a Mr. Wrestling 2, of a Dusty Rhodes, of a Les Thatcher, because they're not out there being themselves. They are projecting this character, and it comes off phony and lame.
And part of the other thing too is what's missing in facial expressions and body language is you're too busy remembering the 47 spots that you laid out in the back. You don't have time to think, where are we in this match? How should I be selling what I'm doing? Right? Are we 5 minutes in, or 15 minutes, or 20 minutes? And that's.
Well, I will say their timing is perfect. They're able to end the show exactly when they need to in every show. So their timing is absolutely perfect. I will give them that. But this thing about and if I'm wrong, just say, hey, Rodney, you have no idea what you're talking about. But this thing that I give a big move, I go for the pin, 1, 2, kick out, and I'm going to stare into the audience and do this instead of turning around and jumping on the guy. That makes no sense to me.
I'm going to knock you down.
Yes.
And then I'm going to run 20 feet over to this corner.
Yes.
And wait for you to get up so I can charge you and eat your boot. And I think
that's right.
You're the stupidest babyface I've ever seen. Jim Crockett Senior would have fired your ass years ago, right?
If I'm in the middle of the ring, I'm rolling to the ropes and to the floor. I'm telling you right now, that's the way I'm doing it. But then that is the way. When I was growing up, that was the way it legitimately. Honestly, if I'm Ole and Gene, and I'm going against Les Thatcher and Roger Kirby, and we've got to wait for Les Thatcher to have his music to come down the aisle, and he gets in the ring with the Andersons. By the time they start Roger's music up, Les Thatcher's already eating Matt because the Andersons are beating his head in. Stupid.
And I can't come help my partner till my music plays.
That's right.
Okay, you know what I've said, and some of these young guys look at me like I'm nuts. But this is when Cena was hot, right? I said, you want to make people, I don't say they'll believe, but they'll question.
Sure.
Put a baby face in a ring, have a couple heels gang up on him, all right? Cena's going to make the save, but his music is not going to play, and he's going to be in street clothes. We're not going to,
Yes.
And I guarantee you that people at home and some of the people in the audience, not the whole crowd, are going to say, that wasn't part of the show. Why? His music didn't play.
That's right. That's right. You're exactly right. For me, one of the worst things for me, Roman Reigns has his group of stooges, the Uso brothers. You mean to tell me that his opponents, whoever he's working with, I think, what was the last one? Right now, Mysterio. You mean to tell me they don't have any friends that they can come out there and sit and watch him? Instead of just sitting there every week, well, I've got 3 people with me. I'm the only person here. I have no friends. I think that's ridiculous. Well, if I'm standing out there, okay, think about it. You're against Ole on television. You're teaming with Roger Kirby, and Gene's at ringside. Well, before the match even starts, he said, wait, if he's standing out here, hold on, I'm going back. I'm having Roger being in my corner. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right. Well, one of the things that I've said too in recent weeks is, and WWE is starting to do it too, is you come out to wrestle me, half your family and 6 other guys come out and stand in your corner, and half my family and 6 other guys. And you think the fans think they're going to, of course they know somebody's going to interfere.
Yes.
If it's a single match, leave all the extra guys in the back, for Christ's sake. You're doing the same thing over and over and over.
Repetitive, yeah. And from what I understand, and I could be wrong, they don't believe people sit through the entire 2 hours of the show or 3 hours. They don't. They only watch bits and pieces, and it could be true. I don't know. I think they're getting the ratings by segments.
But I mentioned to you earlier, before a while back, I said, I talked to the guy. I said, wait a minute here. What's the deal with you are supposed to be something, and yet you aren't that something. You're something totally different. And then after 3 weeks, they change your name and give you a new costume, but they don't tell me why they changed your name or why they gave you a costume. And as you know, back in the day, if I came into the territory as a French Foreign Legion member, there's going to be a story to go with that because
Exactly.
I was here before as just myself, right?
Exactly.
They don't tie the loose ends together. They just let them wave out there and blow in the breeze, you know?
Yeah, exactly right.
How many people has take some of these guys? Well, there was a joke about this a couple years ago that Big Show had been heel and switched from heel to babyface like 31
Yes.
times.
Yes.
And I think that affects your ability to draw as well.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Jackie Fargo had the greatest statement ever made to Nick Gulas. I'll do this, but I'll never turn back. And if you ask me to turn back, I quit. And he was right, because it did kill him off. We saw the same exact thing happen over and over again. Got to where Slater wouldn't draw flies in Georgia. I switched him back for Stan Hansen, same thing, superstar, same thing, just switch back and forth. And part of the problem with the WWE, of course, they don't really have size. It's the shades of gray nonsense. But to me, you got to have clear divisions in the thing. One team, one side, other side.
Well, you know, back in the day, back in the 60s and 70s, if you and I are a tag team and they're going to break us up and switch you heel or me heel and have us feud, first of all, we have to be together more than 5 minutes or 5 days, or right? And they put guys together, and 3 weeks later, they haven't even established that they belong together yet, right?
Sure.
Everything's in it. It's like we're all double parked, and the cops are getting ready to tag our cars. We got to hurry up, get through this and get out of here. Yep.
And the double cross on those shows are coming at just every time. If you do it, and of course, it doesn't mean anything. When you do it once a year, then it works. You do it once a week, doesn't quite work. It doesn't get that. I mean, think about it. They had no turns basically when Ole and Dusty against the Assassins in the cage in Atlanta. So when Ole did it, it was a big deal. If they had just done 1-2 weeks before, not a big deal.
And again, the element of surprise is more important today.
Sure.
Because I hate to say everybody's smart, because they're really not, you know, but I understand, you know, and I ask some young guys, I say, okay, you tell me, you're talking about attention span, and you got to have a 8-minute match or a 9-minute match because people are watching longer than that. I said, you ever seen the movie Scarface? I said, how long is it? At least an hour and a half, right? 2 hours maybe. Did you watch it all? How? You don't have the attention span. I said, let me tell you how. Real actors, real storyline, and they took you along for the ride. They took Scarface from his childhood till that big gun battle at the end, and it took all day and 2 hours to get you there, right?
Exactly.
All you have to do is repeat that, copy that in your wrestling match. You've got a winner.
Well, it's like I tried to explain, what are the top movies? What are the top movies? And of course, they really don't know, and they don't want to answer. Well, let's think about it. It's superhero movies. There's big box office, from the Black Panther to the Marvel, all the Avengers. And what was that? Well, it was good against evil, right? Right. And how long were those movies? Some 2 hours and 20 minutes. Did you sit through the whole thing? Well, yeah. What's the difference? Those are over, and you're not. That's the difference.
Keep going back to the Star Wars movies.
Yes.
Because they leave you wanting more.
Exactly right. And what's the deal there? Good versus evil. There's no shades of gray. None.
Yeah, we're going to change the business. We're going to have baby faces and heels. Okay, whatever.
And you get what you get today. Can you imagine if they'd have done Hulk Hogan like that when they first started him?
You know, the formula, that's the thing. Dr. Tom and I have said this at seminars we've done together before. You know, the basics are always going to be the basics.
Sure.
The movie that won Best Dramatic Film in 1950 And the movie that won the best dramatic film this year, now the cinematic quality is different, the clothing is different, the special effects are different, but the basics that made those two movies win those Academy Awards are exactly the same. And that's what I keep old school bullshit, old school.
No, it's the fundamentals.
You can learn this business the way I learned it and still be as good at it as you need to be.
It's the basics. It's the basics. It's the fundamental. It is the formula that's worked, and it works every time it's tried. And they just no, that's the way it used to be done. Really? Well, you need to figure out how many tickets were sold. I'm just going to say Chattanooga. I don't know when Nick Goulas was running it in say '75, and how many WWE sold. I can assure you that Nick Goulas sold far more tickets than the WWE has ever sold in this town. I mean, even if you average at 3,000 a week, that's 150,000 tickets.
Well, they keep saying the territories weren't a good thing, but if you took every territory's Saturday night house,
sure,
and counted the people, how many houses like that are these big companies drawing today on Saturday night? Exactly
right. I mean, and who's saying this? This makes my head explode. What moron has said this?
Is it these
more? I've heard it. I've heard it more than once. Oh, wrestling's bigger today than it was back then. I said, what rock have you been under? Obviously, you wasn't there at the time, were you? I mean, how many shows run in a night's time?
Yeah, they're talking about there's so much wrestling. Everything's good. I said, let me tell you something. I'm old enough to remember when there was this much wrestling when I was a kid, like I just said to you earlier today.
Sure.
Right? And guess what? 3 years later, there wasn't that much wrestling. You know why? Because they burned it out.
Yes. Yes.
And you guys are all on major networks now, and watch major networks live on the bottom line. And when that show doesn't earn the money, guess what? It won't be there. Because they're not beholding to you. You are beholding to them.
Wrestling started on the networks back in the 50s when television went on. Then it disappeared and had to go to local markets.
Right.
Sometimes history repeats itself.
Doesn't it?
And for those who want to know, the answer is not doing a national show. In case you don't know that already. Put your money into a national show and see how long you're staying in business.
Right.
Try it locally, see what happens.
You know, I don't know if I'll be around, but it's going to drop off. It always does. That's the whole thing. If you have a chart on wrestling in my lifetime, it's going to be up and
down.
The flow chart. Yeah, exactly. There's no such thing as it's always going to be this way. No,
it's ebbs and flows like anything. And well, I'm exhausted. Are you?
I think so. We've been at this 3 hours and 15 minutes.
That is right. We've been at 3 hours, and I've enjoyed every single minute of it.
Thank you, and I hope I've given you some good stuff. I hope
you've got some great stuff, and we didn't even really. We just kind of scratched the surface. We didn't really get into the details of your time at each one of these territories for sure. And there's so much more. A lot of details, and we'll get back with you. We'll talk again.
All right.
So I'd like to say,
recording now, are we?
Yes, we are. Well, we can cut it off.
Oh,
right. Let me just close it out real quick. I want to say thank you to Les Thatcher. We've got a lot of this, about 3 hours and a half that you can enjoy, and he's telling you everything from beginning to end. And it's worth the listen, I can assure you. By the way, thank you very much. If you like this, please give us the big thumbs up and the ring the bell and notification and all that other good stuff. And until next time, for Les Thatcher, I'm Rodney West. We'll see you on the next Pro Wrestling Insider Now.